we got this about arenas, and we've got the WNBA themselves, the owners. Oh, they're about to play some hardball. They've said, we're not going to lock out. We're going to go into a status quo. So what are they about to do? They're about to tempt these players with some money. You want to see a fracture in the Players Association? Adam Silver is about to play serious hard.
You know that feeling when someone's being super nice to you, but you can sense they're quietly maneuvering you exactly where they want you? That's what's happening with WNBA ownership right now, and honestly, it's pretty brilliant to watch. They've rolled out 3 agency qualifying offers, and if you think this is just boring paperwork, you're completely missing what's actually going down. We're talking about power moves, leverage plays, and totally flipping the script on who's really calling the shots when things get heated. Everything's about to get turned upside down. The whole game is shifting, and the people who thought they were running this show are about to learn some very expensive lessons.
Money talks, BS walks. And though the league and the players have not come to terms on a new collective bargaining agreement, the league and the owners are giving the general managers a clear message. Send out free agent offers anyway. Maybe if we dangle some dollars in front of these players' faces, they're more likely to say, I can go for a paycheck right now. Oh, you know, I know we're all strong on this front, but I'm kind of hungry for a meal.
So the team owners basically looked around and decided they were done pretending everyone gets equal say in how this thing runs. They spent years just going along while the players union drove these talks like some kind of wild roller coaster with broken brakes. And apparently the grown-ups in the room finally said, that's it, we're done here. Nobody lost their cool, nobody started yelling, but suddenly everything felt different.
Line says, WNBA is telling teams they can send free agent offers amid CBA uncertainty. Guys, teams are about to start sending out free agent offers to players. No, you're going to have some players that hadn't been making much money all of a sudden look up and they're like, oh.
Hold up though, what began as pretty fair asks for better pay has somehow turned into this weird self-sabotage mission, dressed up like it's about standing up for what's right. Everyone's acting all surprised that real consequences are starting to pop up, like somehow their choices exist in this magical bubble where the real world just waits around politely until they're ready to deal with it. This whole thing stopped being about smart growth or making sense and turned into this grab for absolutely everything right now. Zero thought about whether any of this could actually work long term. The league was handed incredible momentum, real visibility, and actual fans who cared. Instead of protecting something that rare and valuable, the move has been to blow it all up and fight over who gets the shiniest toys. That's not smart positioning, that's basically theater pretending to be serious business, and everyone watching is getting pretty tired of the show.
WNBA telling teams they can send free agent offers amid CBA uncertainty. The league has called every team to tell them they can send offers to free agents during the status quo period. Sources tell Front Office Sports, but players are unlikely to sign anything in this limbo. Now, at first glance, you could be asking yourselves, well, there's no CBA agreement. Why would...
But here's what really gets me about the owners. The most incredible part is how absolutely certain everyone seems to be about this strategy. Like there's some parallel universe where replacement leagues just magically appear overnight with all the infrastructure, money, and cultural impact already built in. This whole fantasy that some other league is just sitting there ready to take all the talent, funding, and attention has been treated like gospel truth, even though literally every single piece of evidence says that dream is made of absolutely nothing. Venues that host games also host concerts, trade shows, monster truck events, and basically whatever else pays the bills without threatening complete chaos. When dates aren't locked down, those slots get sold to whoever will actually commit. And once they're gone, they don't just magically come back because someone finally decided maybe compromise wasn't such a bad idea after all.
Brand organization across our sports in America, the WNBA and WNBPA find themselves at a bit of a standstill as the CBA negotiations, they went unanswered. And we all predicted this, guys. We know that the owners are talking common sense, and common sense isn't registering with female athletes who probably left college with not the best GPA, not knowing how to conduct proper business.
Right here is where ownership quit smiling nicely and started playing the kind of serious game that doesn't need big lockout announcements or flashy press events. Rather than shutting the whole thing down and making it into some kind of dramatic spectacle, the league chose this much more sophisticated approach by just working within the legal structure that's already there and letting everything move forward without a new deal being done. What you get is this chess move that looks like boring administrative stuff, but it's absolutely devastating when you really think about it. According to labor law, when agreements run out, certain things are allowed to keep happening unless both sides specifically agree to put everything on pause. Free agency qualifying offers fit right into that space. Taking a hard stance is pretty straightforward when the whole argument lives in press releases and Twitter posts. It gets a lot more complicated when a player who's never seen real money suddenly finds themselves looking at an offer that could completely change their financial future. Principals have a funny way of getting shaky when rent, security, and long-term stability show up to the conversation.
On this day, we're supposed to have WNBA free agency negotiations happening today. Now, it's supposed to go on from today, I believe, till February the 6th. As of right now, like I stated, we haven't got any update on any free agency news. Now, with that being said, an article has been released talking about WNBA stars reportedly won't sign contracts and still.
The union trying to act like this development doesn't matter has been totally predictable and not convincing at all, because saying free agency stuff is meaningless without a new agreement completely ignores how actual human beings respond to real opportunities. Calling something pointless doesn't prevent people from running the numbers, and math has never lost when figures start looking like life-changing money instead of symbolic victories. The whole story changes whether anyone likes it or not. What makes this whole situation extra messy is the variety of players we're dealing with, because this league isn't just made up of superstars with endorsement money and international paychecks. Plenty of players have been grinding for years making modest money, and those players are way less likely to look at a qualifying offer like it's some theoretical concept. When someone who's been earning just enough to survive suddenly sees a chance at real financial security, sticking together becomes a much more complex discussion. The genius of this whole approach is how quiet it is, because nobody's being forced into anything and no one's making threats. Ownership is just letting the system that already exists do what it does. While the union debates whether any of this should even be happening, that mismatch alone creates problem. One side is dealing with actual opportunities right now, while the other is trying to keep everyone united when individual incentives are staring people in the face.
Just a random thought, but I think that even Kayla Clark at this point, at least she understands. And I know a lot of people feel like Kayla Clark is, you know, the put on the pedestal, she's the flower child and whatnot, but we've seen reports where she's come out and said, yeah, I get what's going on and we do need to be paid, but at the same time we need to play basketball. Okay, she's between a rock and a hard place. If you ask me, you know, it's either she complies or next season she's going to get blacked out.
This whole dynamic gets even more fascinating when you think about players who are on the edge of huge pay bumps under frameworks that were already being discussed. Even if those specific numbers aren't locked in stone yet, just knowing that kind of money is potentially available changes how everything feels. Once someone starts believing they're worth way more, sitting around waiting stops feeling like smart strategy and starts feeling like punishing yourself for no reason. From a negotiating perspective, this is exactly the kind of pressure that makes things happen faster, because urgency takes over from all the posturing. Players who want answers, security, and forward movement suddenly have motivation to push for getting things done instead of making things worse. Without a finished agreement, being able to lock in dates, handle logistics, and work with venues gets more and more shaky. Arenas don't care about feelings, and they don't hold weekends open out of the goodness of their heart. As those dates start disappearing, the fallout gets very real very fast. A season without a schedule isn't actually a season. Every lost date makes whatever comes next more complicated, and every complication brings more cost, stress, and uncertainty. Eventually, it becomes obvious that pushing too hard can mean losing way more than just negotiating power.
I've been holding off on making videos about the WNBA and this collective bargaining agreement because honestly, it just pisses me off as a business guy. However, I had to get on here because I'm seeing that they keep turning stuff down, and I'm seeing what's happening with Unrivaled. And one of the things I realized, I'm like, why is this thing making me so mad? Why is this stuff making me so bad? In my mind, in the business world, A business should actually create revenue.
This is where the whole thing becomes almost funny in a dark way, because fighting for total control and maximum money threatens to destroy the exact platform that makes any of this possible in the first place. Growth can't survive being constantly unstable, and fans don't hang around when everything always feels like it's about to fall apart. Momentum is delicate, and once you break it, putting it back together is way harder than just protecting it from the start. The whole situation gets even more complex when you consider how the league recently brought in fresh audiences and attention. Instead of embracing that wave and turning it into sustainable growth, most of the public-facing energy has gone toward pushing those exact fans away. That approach only makes sense if the goal is to make the tent smaller while fighting over who gets to stand in the middle. Younger players and bench contributors don't experience negotiations the same way established veterans do, and pretending that's not true doesn't change reality. For players who have brand goals and marketability potential, the math gets even more interesting, because team situation matters. A qualifying offer from a high-profile franchise isn't just a contract, it's a chance for exposure, relevance, and career development. Watching teammates experience massive popularity boosts just by ending up in the right situation has a way of changing priorities really quickly.
When the reality is, the polished herd known as Unrivaled is actually running as a charity. For those that don't know, and judging by the complete lack of attention that this secondary dump is currently receiving, I think it's safe to say that no one knows. Monday afternoon, Unrivaled officially started their second season of huge embarrassing failure. TNT.
When a player witnesses firsthand how connecting with a major team can boost their profile beyond anything salary alone could ever accomplish, the attraction becomes impossible to ignore. At that moment, holding up free agency activity stops feeling like taking a principled stand and starts feeling like shooting yourself in the foot. Career windows don't stay open forever, and momentum almost never waits for group meetings. Ownership gets this dynamic completely, which is why this move feels less like intimidation and more like showing everyone how things actually work. By letting qualifying offers move forward, they're pointing out the practical pradelery that exists underneath all the talking points. Contract timelines and arenas run on schedules that don't care about messaging campaigns. The bigger picture lesson here is that leverage only functions when it's based on how things actually are, and reality has this habit of making itself known whether you invite it or not. The league can handle difficult negotiations. What it can't handle is endless instability driven by conflict based on bad calculations. This strategy doesn't promise everything will go smoothly, but it does promise that something will happen because staying stuck is no longer possible. The offers create a new factor, and every new factor increases pressure to wrap up discussions before preventable damage becomes irreversible.
And I'm sitting here and we got Caitlin Clark on one hand and we got Angel Reese on another hand. The female version of Larry Bird and Magic Johnson from my day of being young and watching the NBA grow once they built around those two superstars. But it's clear that the powers that be in the WNBA Players Association don't want to actually generate revenue. So I've said in previous videos, this is a social justice warrior league. But I'm going to say this, guys. The way the WNBA players want this thing to run is like a Somali.
When you step back and look at this whole thing, it's basically a masterclass in how real power moves don't always come with big dramatic announcements. Sometimes they show up quietly, dressed up as following the rules that already exist, and then let human psychology handle the rest. When money, opportunity, and timing all line up, ideals usually end up having some very practical conversations with reality, whether they plan to or not. The owners didn't have to get loud, make threats, or lock anyone out to get their message across, because they knew that incentives communicate way more effectively than press statements. By letting the process keep rolling, they basically changed the whole balance without ever looking like that's what they were doing. That's not being aggressive, that's just being smart. As time keeps moving and more information comes out, it's gonna get harder and harder to pretend this is all just theoretical. Offers are gonna get evaluated, dates are gonna be lost or locked in, and priorities are gonna shift based on what's actually happening. At that stage, the question won't be who's winning the public relations battle, but who's actually ready to handle what happens when you drag things out too long. Every additional day without resolution quietly moves leverage away from group ideas deals and toward individual math. That shift doesn't need anyone to sell anyone else out for it to occur. It just happens naturally, almost politely, as players start wondering what waiting around is actually costing them.
At for TNT, what a fall from grace. TNT went from broadcasting the NBA to broadcasting 3-on-3 pretend basketball featuring 6 players on the court that struggle to be recognized by their own parents. Seriously, check out this list of stars in the highly anticipated matchup Monday afternoon between the Vinyl and the Shoelaces.
The truth that nobody wants to talk about is that time doesn't just sit there neutral in negotiations like this, because careers don't last forever. Windows for earning are fragile, and momentum rarely feels like being patient. A delayed season doesn't hit pause on bills, training, or missed opportunities, and it definitely doesn't stop the rest of the entertainment world from filling up those empty calendar spots. Every missed chance to secure dates or confirm plans adds to the feeling that this standoff isn't just philosophical anymore. It's getting genuinely expensive. Ownership knows that patience feels completely different when it comes with uncertainty attached, which is why choosing to move forward within the existing rules feels so deliberate. There's also this unavoidable image problem building up under the surface, because fans tend to pick up on it when momentum dies. New viewers who showed up expecting growth and excitement aren't heavily invested in the inside baseball of labor negotiations, and they're even less understanding when prolonged dysfunction becomes the main story. Excitement fades without making noise, and when it goes away, it almost never comes back at the same level.
Now, with that being said, I'm not going to waste any time. We're going to head right on over to X and pull this statement on up. It stated, as the current WNBA CBA expires at midnight, the WNBA PA issued a statement Friday criticizing the league's handling of negotiation and returning players' demands for revenue sharing, improved working conditions, and long-term protection. Now, here's the full statement right here that has been released. Let me blow this up all the way so you guys can.
As qualifying offers start making the rounds and rumors definitely start flying, the whole narrative will keep moving from group demands to individual choices. That change alone makes it harder to keep everyone on the same page. Not because players are backstabbers, but because they're smart. What makes this moment extra telling is how little work it took to shift the balance. No big confrontation, no major announcements, just a reminder that the system keeps running whether everyone's on board or not. That realization by itself forces everyone to recalibrate, because fighting reality is exhausting, and eventually exhaustion always wins. If this whole episode teaches us anything, it's how fragile leverage can be when it's built on assumptions instead of actual infrastructure. Confidence without backup plans isn't real power, and unity without adaptability isn't actual strength. As things keep moving forward, those lessons are going to get harder to pretend don't exist, especially for anyone still hoping that waiting longer somehow makes the outcome better.